Welcome to another episode of Pilots Say What, where we get to hear what pilots have to say. And today we're going to be talking with Hayden. Hayden might be a familiar face, but there's a few things that I've learned that he has knowledge about, and it'd be nice to hear a little more about. So we have Hayden on again. Hayden, just in case, for those who
Yeah.
may not have met you, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a CFII here at Thrust Flight. I have been since November of 24. I went through the program here myself, starting at the instrument level for the 141 program back in November of 23. Prior to that, I was Part 61 school, kind of a couple Part 61 schools,
Okay.
and was training with my mentor first, and then got to another 61 to finish up.
Right.
And I finished all that private. Basically the year of 2023. So we went through that whole program, kind of saw differences kind of toward thrust, and I was like, man, I need some structure. I need to go to 141. So that's how I ended up here.
What was it like coming into a Part 141 school and feeling that change? Do you remember some of the differences?
Oh, do I remember some of the differences? Yes. So Part 61, it was a lot of kind of unguided self-study.
Mm-hmm.
Keep in mind, I didn't make it to college because I wanted to pursue this flight training.
Mm-hmm.
And so I never really got to develop a good study habit,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I was kind of doing what I thought I needed to do.
Yeah.
And it was enough for my private check ride. It was good. Check ride went very well.
Yeah.
But I realized, the instructor I was with, like to finish up my Part 61, didn't give me the time of day in a one-on-one scenario, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was more of, hey, you should look at this. All right, cool. I got this. And then I go home and look at a book and I'm like, where do I start?
Yeah.
So one of the biggest differences, we had a ground class, a dedicated ground class where it was like, hey, by the way, this is what day one is. This is day two. This is day three. And then just progress from there. That was incredible to see. It was encouraging for sure.
What's been your favorite part about flying so far?
Oh, flying? Just flying in general?
Switching up, I'm going to zoom out a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes, just flying in general. Now, you've been doing it for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
What could you say your favorite part about flying is?
And this is going to sound a little cliche, but really what I live for is those morning flights or those evening flights.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's a little bit of IFR weather, right? You're above the cloud layer, sun's rising, sun's setting. Just, you see this golden picture, clouds beneath you, you're sitting up there and you're like, I'm flying an airplane right now in this state right here. It's something you don't see from the ground, right? It's just an absolutely freeing feeling, and that's what I live for. We do a lot of training flights here, but you get these nice little nuggets every once in a while just to kind of sit back, and every time it happens, I'm like, hey, just take a second really quick and just enjoy, right?
Yeah.
A lot of that process, I think a lot of people get a little sidetracked in this training environment because we're training every day. That school or that schedule is booked.
Mm-hmm.
That they kind of forget that the whole goal of being a pilot is go places and do things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go places, do things.
Yeah,
that's all it takes, right? You get up there and you're cruising out, and you're like, man, this is cool.
I can imagine those moments of gratitude are nice to come by because they keep you guys pretty busy, right? I mean,
absolutely.
What is it like scheduling wise and flying wise? Are you busy like all the time? I mean, how often are you here?
5 times a week, sometimes 6, sometimes 7. As an instructor, we do have some days off that we get dedicated, but I'm here for my students, and whatever they need, they need. If their check ride is scheduled on a Tuesday and I'm off on Tuesday, hey, guess who's around and available, right?
That's awesome.
Just to be there for them, right? It's as much as 5 days a week, it's truth be told 7 days a week. And it's pretty involved, right? The schedule, we're booked up. You get plenty of students. You can book them up. You can fly them twice if you need to. You can do a ground with them, right? They're going to be in ground classes themselves, so it's pretty busy. It's booked up. It should be.
Yeah, I mean that's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
So when you find like yourself on the grind a little bit, feeling like your schedule's always packed, and do you sometimes think, oh, okay, I didn't know how fast I was moving?
Yeah, absolutely. Best perspective of this was last month.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody had been asking me, how many hours are you at? How many hours are you at? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm crossing like 530, 540.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of the month, I'd just been grinding. And I
Right.
finally like sat down on one of my days off. It's like, okay, I got to total my logbook. I'm 2 weeks behind. And
Yeah.
I started looking at it. I started going through everything, and I was like, oh my gosh. A month ago, I was 100 hours less than I was at that moment. I flew 100 hours in a month. I had never done that before, and
Yeah.
it flew by. But looking back at it, I was flying every single day. I was flying 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Like it was grinding every day.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it can move real quick.
Okay. Well, moving forward, I'm curious about when you went through the program.
Yeah.
You entered at instrument,
Hmm.
and then you finished up with us all the way through your multi, or
Yeah.
did you finish your multi up? Okay.
Absolutely.
Uh, how much time did that take, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. So let's see. I started in November of 23. It was kind of the later half, so really didn't start like training until December.
Okay.
Just because you get through the ZTA process, you kind of have to do the writtens and like
Yeah.
there's a process to kind of get settled in. But
Mm-hmm.
once you're in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say kind of beginning of December is whenever I first started flying and really chasing it, and then by let's call it November, the very beginning of November
Mm-hmm.
of 24 was kind of the like I got my double I and we were done.
Mm-hmm.
The whole process was about 11 months for me.
You've been flying for about 2 years now. About how much of that time did you fly doing Part 61?
Part 61, just to get through my private, truth be told, was about 12 months.
Yeah.
I did all of my training here at Thrust within the time that it took me to get my private done, which is absolutely incredible. You go through several ratings.
Mm-hmm.
So
Were you okay with the pace you were moving at before, or were you looking for something faster?
that's part of the reason I ended up here, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was pacing.
Okay.
Of course, I was working full time. I was trying to pay myself through everything,
Mm-hmm.
so I knew the process was
Which
going to
makes
be
sense,
dragged out.
to not want to have to kind of just go at your own pace and
Right.
work. But I understand that. I would want to do that, but
Yeah,
that's why I'm asking.
and that's what Part 61 is really about, right? It's your own pace. You get to control everything about it. Part 141 is more of a dedicated craft. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're here for business. You are here to train. You're here to get stuff done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I was looking for. I was like, I know at this point after I completed my private that
Mm-hmm.
this is where I want to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I really took a leap of faith, and what felt like a leap of faith to come out and actually pursue this flight training and get through the ratings. And if you're going to pursue it, like pursue it quick. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah. Well, you work with some of our finish line students now that we
Yeah.
have, and I don't know. Are you able to kind of explain, let me explain this to the viewers and listeners.
Yeah.
If you guys have been listening for a while, or you've seen any of our content, we do have a program called the Finish Line Program, which allows us to take in people who are looking to finish their private, and then join us here at Thrust in our ZTA program to move on towards their career, flying jets or whatever it is they're looking to do. But that can be complicated. So if you're someone who have tried to switch schools in the middle of a rating, you know that can be a little difficult if you're changing from 61 to 141. But Hayden does work with some of these students, and so I have a couple of questions for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the thing that people should know about the Finish Line program?
Well, first things first,
Uh,
here at Thrust, it is not just private finish up, right?
okay.
We can do instrument, we can do commercial, but we do look for some specific things to be met. But it's not a hard requirement, right?
Mhm.
What we're looking for is aeronautical experience. So if you are interested in the finish line program, we want to see, let's take private, for example. You got some solo time, or maybe you've done most all of your aeronautical experience. Maybe you're waiting on a check ride. Maybe you haven't finished all of your aeronautical experience. Like I've got a private student who right now, Part 61, he's in the finish line, and
Mhm.
he's got. We're just trying to finish up his solo cross country time
Right.
and solo time. That's the last requirement that he has to meet, and then we're basically proficient in this aircraft, and we're ready to go.
Mhm.
So if there's one thing you need to know, it's not just exclusive, right? We can get you in basically at all levels. And with that said, we're going to work with you, right? So part 61, right? We have a minimum amount of experience needed, and we're just looking to see, what do you need to finish up so we can get you into the program, get you in, and get going, right? And be quick with
That
that.
makes sense. Okay, well, I just remember we posted a video about the Finish Line program, and people had some questions, and I think one of those questions is, can you really get someone done in 5 days? What happens when someone comes in here and we say we can get them done in 5 days? How
I
does that
mean,
work?
we absolutely could. That's assuming that they have, they've met most of the experience. If you are flying a Cessna or a Warrior or a Beach Sundowner, right? Something that's not complex. It's an airplane, right? Airplanes are airplanes. They have a single engine. This one lands on land, and it's an airplane. Once you kind of know how to fly an airplane, you can go pretty much fly any airplane that's out there. I stand by those words, right? Whenever I went to my multi, the first thing I got in there, and I was like, wow, there's 2 engines. Wait, okay, hang on. This is an airplane. I know how to fly an airplane.
Right.
So it is a lot of a mindset. A lot of times for these guys that are coming in, it's new to the G1000, right? So we're trying to basically build some experience around the G1000 and build experience around the Archer itself. But if you've been flying an airplane, it's another airplane, right?
Yeah. I mean, does it not feel like it takes a lot more to switch up planes once you get in there?
It seems like more of a daunting task than it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
The whole process usually takes about 10 hours. I've seen anywhere from 5 to 10 hours to get proficient in the airplane. Okay. In terms of maneuvers and stuff, it's if you've been practicing them, they're not going to be different between the airplanes. You're going to fly a steep turn the same way you're going to fly a steep turn.
Yeah.
You're still going to do a power off stall the same way you're going to do a power off stall. Landings can be a little different. Maybe the configuration's a little different. Maybe things are just in different places. But just know that with the Finish Line program, it's not all just about flying. Yes, we're doing the flying, but we're also trying to get you proficient in the G1000. So I've sat there and done several GPU sessions where we're on the ground, got a little power unit hooked up to the aircraft, and we're just pushing buttons, right? We're trying to get proficient in just pushing these buttons and doing all these different things. You're going to hit some grounds. I'm going to test you if you're with me. I'm going to test you pretty hard on ground. We're going to go through all the tasks in the ACS just to make sure, hey, we're good here, good here, good here. Hey, we're deficient here, so we need to get you going on this. So
okay, so those 5 days are really just to take someone from wherever they're at, as long as they meet the minimum requirement, and make sure that they are proficient in our systems and in our planes. And of course, can pass a check ride.
Right, absolutely.
That makes sense to me. I think the misunderstanding was that maybe we're bringing people in with hardly any hours and then rushing them through in 5 days. Like, how does that work?
No, absolutely not. So this is really aimed towards those guys, and the viewers will probably know exactly what I'm talking about. You're sitting there, you've had all this private experience. You're sitting there, you're waiting on a check ride. They're telling you that maybe it's 3 weeks out, and you get 3 weeks later and still haven't heard anything. Oh, hey, look, we got to delay another week. Listen, we have check ride availability, right? We work closely with a lot of DPs. I mean, Patrick even, he's done one of my private finish up students, and she got done in 6.5 hours, right? It was truly a week to get her through, get her done. She had everything met. She'd just been waiting. And we're trying to get you guys, done, right? We can get you into the ZTA program. We'll get you done pretty quick. That's the whole point of it. So.
And you said that we, work closely with the DPs, and Patrick himself is one, right?
Yeah.
So your student that you're saying is close to ready for a check ride at that point. How long do you imagine he might have to wait to get a check ride?
I mean, we're pretty caught up with check rides, so I wouldn't imagine it being more than a week.
I talked to a student recently that had transferred here from somewhere else in the country. He said the DPEs there were like, months backed up.
Yeah, and that's still the case. It's still the case around here. You talk to all sorts of DPs or flight schools, and maybe they only work with one DPE, right? That's what's nice about for us is we've got plenty of guys that we do work with.
Right.
And we've got kind of a team that we've put together to make sure that there's good communication between them, right? Hey, here's my availability. Hey, we've got students, right?
Yeah.
So we really have overcome that obstacle as of recent, for sure.
Right. And you say, a lot of these people are coming in at their private, although it could be different ratings. So let's just say someone comes in and they're moving on to instrument. Do you teach instrument at all?
Yeah, I love the instrument. I
Yeah.
love teaching instrument, especially in the 141 environment. It's
Yeah.
it's very fast paced.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, how many hours does it take to qualify for a check ride for
Yeah,
instrument?
for instrument, so the kind of break it down into 3 stages. There's 10 hours that has to be done in a simulator. Stage one, 6 of that, and then stage two, you kind of finish up the rest of it. Then you're flying the airplane, and then stage three is more about the cross country aspect of it. But all in with the 10 hours simulated plus the airplane, you're looking at 33 hours to submit for check ride, and to be eligible for your instrument, 35 at the very minimum. So the stage three check in the EOC, we're looking at 35 hours of simulated instrument time, or actual, right?
Yeah.
And truth be told, I mean, that's super easy to get. I've had a student where we've gotten 10 hours of actual in the instrument rating, which is wonderful. I've had a student who brought through this instrument rating in 17 days, right? So we can be real quick with it.
And it sounds like it's a little bit faster. Are you familiar with what instrument looks like at maybe in programs? Because it sounds like we have an accelerated instrument program.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So do you know, is there a different minimum requirement if it's not Part 141?
Yeah, it's a huge difference. Part 141, you can come right out of private. Let's say you finished at minimums, maybe you didn't. You can come right out of private from anywhere from 35 to 60 hours. And an instrument, you could have your instrument within 35 hours, right? In the Part 61 world, to be eligible for your instrument rating, you have to have 50 hours of PIC, right? You start logging PIC in private as a solo, right? You're solo, you're PIC because you're the only person on board, right?
Yeah.
Who else is PIC?
Yeah, exactly.
In instrument, once you get your private pilot license, or your private pilot certificate, in instrument, whenever you start working towards it, anytime you're flying with a CFI, because your hands are on the controls, you're certified in the category class, you're logging PIC time. So you have to do 50 hours, and there's a certain amount that has to be cross-country PIC as well. So with all that said, the requirement just to be eligible is 50 hours at the minimum, right? And the way that you break it down, we could break it down into several different blocks of time, right? Cross-country hours, nighttime, simulated versus actual, and you should only be getting actual if you're with a double I, right?
Yeah.
So there's a whole way of breaking all this stuff down into aeronautical experience, but it is significantly longer in the Part 61 world.
Yeah. Okay. Well, since you do teach it sometimes, or you like teaching instrument, is there something about it that you like the most, or is there a maneuver that you like teaching the most?
So with instrument, you're not necessarily concerned with maneuvers, right? We do have like holds procedures and shooting instrument approaches, ILSs versus RNAVs and VORs, right?
Okay.
With that said, what I love about instrument is it's very, in my opinion, very black and white, right? It's either you're doing something right or you're doing something wrong. And what makes it very, how do I phrase this? What I love about the fact that it's black and white, it's very easy for a student with a good teacher to know when they're doing something right or when they're doing something wrong, right? So that's, in my opinion, why this accelerated program really works with the instrument rating. And one thing that I really try to emphasize is with the instrument rating, right? A lot of times we're coming in, we're flying out of Addison, we're coming back to Addison, right? So we get stuck in this mindset of, maybe we're Addison McKinney pilots, right?
Yeah.
Going from Addison to McKinney, McKinney back to Addison, right? Shooting instrument approaches, doing all the works, right? One thing that I really emphasize with my students is that with instrument, this is all about cross country, right? This is about planning. This is about, how can you get through this instrument rating and be able to apply it to the real world, right? Airlines, right?
Right.
They are always, every single time, they're on an instrument flight plan. Every single time. So being able to correlate it to something like that is going to be super helpful for an instrument student.
Do you have any tips for students who may be struggling with instrument, or I don't know what it is that people would normally struggle with an instrument?
Yeah, with the instrument, what I see a lot of times is just a lot of knowledge, right? About, how to break something down. whenever it comes to an instrument approach, right? This is what a lot of instrument is about, is instrument approaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being able to sequence into an airport, following the proper procedure to be lined up with the runway to make a safe landing without seeing anything, right? That's the whole point of the instrument rating.
Yeah.
So what I see a lot of the time is a lot of people don't really understand how to get onto the approach or be situationally aware or spatially aware of where they're at in reference to where these points are, right? So one of the things that I always teach is really breaking down each of the approaches. Every single approach, you have an initial segment, you have an intermediate segment, and you have a final approach segment, right? And being able to understand what's happening at each one, right? Initial segment, we're trying to get onto the approach, right? There's an altitude you're going to be, there's a course that you're flying, right?
Yeah.
The intermediate is getting set up from that initial to then go to your final, right? Intermediate, you might have to descend a little bit, right? May have to descend a bunch, but it's going to be giving you basically some time to get set up to configure yourself to go in and make a landing, right? Then once you hit your final approach or your final approach fix, right, you're descending. You're going down to the runway. This is the portion of that where we really have to be on our game, right? Because we're coming in, everything's getting a little more sensitive. Our control inputs are becoming a little bit more fine, right? A little bit more finesse. And then you're coming in, and then all of a sudden you break out of the clouds and there's a runway in front of you. And it's the most incredible thing you've ever seen.
What can someone do ahead of time before they're in the air to sort of understand what each segment is going to look like, or maybe where their checkpoints are? I mean, do they map it out based on the airport?
So every airport, as long as there's instrument approaches that are published, right? There are published plates for these airports, right? And that's what's really nice is once you kind of understand how to break down each of these approaches, you can go to any airport, pull up one of the approaches on ForeFlight, or maybe you old school use the TPP, right? You can pull out any one of these approach plates and you can be like, okay, how would I fly this approach? There's a couple ways, right? There's each one of these approaches has different approach minimums, right? So you could have, say, on an RNAV, you could have a what we call an LPV. You could have an LP, or localizer performance. You could have an LNAV, VNAV, an LNAV, and a circling approach, right? I just named 5 different minimums, and they're all flown the same, except for the last final approach segment, right? That's what changes. So being able to interpret that, be able to put yourself in that headspace and kind of fly yourself through this. How would I do this? With an LNAV, I got to go down to this altitude based off of what kind of category aircraft I'm at, level off, and, go missed at whatever point it specifies, right? Whereas with an LPV, you're flying this thing down at 3 degrees or whatever specified on the approach, right? You hit a certain altitude and then you go missed, right? So being able to put yourself in that mindset to go through, and how would I be if I was here, right? The other part is getting on the approach, right? On the approach segment. So the ATC, they can give you vectors, right? So a lot of people teach vectors and vectors only, and I think that's a huge disservice. Reason being is approaches aren't all about vectors, right? I've been several airports around here. You talk with approach, Lone Star here in DFW, they're going to vector you. And the reason being is because they're in control of basically everybody, especially when you're under IFR.
Right.
Outside of the approach area, outside of this Bravo area, you're talking to center. Center is not only dealing with you, he's dealing with the VFR traffic that's west of the Metroplex. He's dealing with the guys who are up top, right? He's dealing with the guys that are en route. You hear all the, Southwest calls, you hear all the American calls, you hear all the Spirit Wings, right? And then they start talking to you, and then they give something else, right? So whenever it comes to talking with center, which is where most of these other airports are at, a lot of times they're going to be like, hey, you ready for the approach? And we're going to be like, we're ready. And he goes, all right, you're cleared to this fix, cleared for the approach, right? I could phrase it if you want me to.
I mean, give him an example, but
a little example.
That sounds tough,
But, center. He's going to be like, thrust 555. You're cleared direct to this fix, cross this fix at 3,000, cleared for the RNAV 17 approach into majors or something, right? Is going to be something along those lines. You could be 30 miles away from that fix, right? But he's going to give you clearance for it if nobody else is there. So being able to set yourself up by those initial approach fixes is really key to a lot of this stuff.
And then you were saying like the vector part, like they're not going to necessarily they're not going to always get that.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying too?
Yeah. So for example, in vectors, right? Basically this is ATC, they're going to be like, fly heading of 330. Then they're gonna, you're gonna fly this heading for a while at a specified altitude, and they're gonna be like, all right, fly heading of 270. Cool, flying 270 at this point. Then they're gonna be like, all right, thrust 555, turn left heading of 190, intercept the localizer. All right, so let's go intercept the localizer on 190 heading, and you gotta know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of times they're kind of just sequencing you in based off of all this other traffic. There's a lot more volume in this area. So.
Yeah. That's so interesting I can only imagine what it looks like on their screens, actually.
Yeah.
I've actually watched some videos, but I'm just like, making those calls is pretty intense.
Yeah.
But what do you primarily teach? Do you primarily instruct students that are in their instrument?
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. My time here has kind of evolved, with time as I get experience and whatnot. So I really started off with a lot of instruments. I had some CFII candidates, and just teaching a lot of instruments. I have, I think, 5 instrument passes, 5 out of 5, and 3 double I's, right? So there's 8 check rides that I've sent, all different stages that all had to do with instruments. I've also had privates, right? So here at Thrust, once you get 100 hours of dual given, we can get checked out for privates. Being able to teach privates, I love teaching privates. It's very rewarding. It's also very challenging, right? It's you learn a whole lot about yourself, a whole lot about teaching, and a whole lot about how to teach somebody who has no idea what they're doing, right? Which is really an invaluable experience as an instructor, right? If you're an instructor and you haven't taught privates, you have not unlocked your full capabilities as a flight instructor. So I've done a bunch of those. I've had my Part 61 guys, I've had my 141 guys, and even though they're technically in different programs, the way you teach them is the same, right?
Right.
It's not going to be different. It shouldn't be different just because they're in a 141 environment versus 61. Quality of instruction is quality of instruction, right? So there's great instructors out there. Part 61, there's great instructors that are Part 141, and the inverse is true for both sides, right?
Right.
So I've done quite a bit of those, and just now, recently, I've started getting into CFIs and teaching CFI guys.
That's fun. That sounds like fun. What's it like teaching someone who is the training seems to be a bit less about maneuvering the plane and some of the rules around maneuvering the plane when it comes to CFI? What is it that you're really studying? What is it really that you're teaching them, I guess?
Yeah. So that's a fantastic question, because once you get to the CFI level, you pass your commercial check ride, they already know what they're doing, right?
Right.
The biggest difference is transition in the right seat. Teaching them the ins and outs of maybe some of the stuff I've learned as an instructor, right? A lot of times whenever it comes to this CFI transition, as I like to call it, it's a quick rating. It should be a quick rating. You already know how to fly the airplane. You already know all the maneuvers and everything. You're just trying to adjust your sight picture, and you're trying to essentially start talking, right? A lot of times, and I encourage my students, whenever they're in private or instrument, hey, start talking me through, what are you doing? Like, why are we doing this? But it's really important here in CFI that they start talking, right? Give a why, give a good explanation as to what the maneuver is. I can't tell you how many times I've had a private student who's like, why? Exactly. So kind of becoming that private student to the CFI, right? Asking them why are we doing this? And sometimes they just kind of sit there like, why do we do this? Right?
Yeah.
Makes them think, and be able to explain stuff, right? Not only that, but being able to, maybe talk about standards, right? That's something that we look for as an instructor. Maybe you don't teach the standards first, right? Maybe you teach them how to control an aircraft. But once we get down to the nitty gritty, right? Hey, you get plus or minus 100 feet on this maneuver, right?
Yeah.
What are we doing, right? And how can we fix this? How can we get you within standards, right? Because ultimately they have to take a check ride in order to get their certificate, right? So that's the main focus is a why, what are we doing, and talking through the maneuver, right? Oh yeah, I recognize that I'm high right now. Let's pitch that nose down. Maybe I bank a little bit more, and we can fix that altitude pretty quick, right? Being able to build that recognition, because once you get to CFI, you're kind of sitting there in the right seat and you have to let them take control, right?
Yeah.
So being able to coach them through, what are they doing? All right, hey, look at where your nose is, right? Your nose is really high, right? How do we fix this? So that's kind of what we're building on, right?
Yeah. It's cool to hear about that process, because I can only imagine the mindset shift it takes to teach someone how to teach. you
Yeah.
know, and not only that, to go from student to teacher and at a pretty quick pace.
Right.
But I've talked to a lot of you guys who have started as well recently, within a short period of time of actually doing the interview,
Right.
and it's so interesting to hear them, start to ask themselves much harder questions than they were before.
Yeah.
No one's asking. It seems like it's more about learning how to ask questions sometimes.
It is.
Yeah,
And it is about asking, or learning how to ask
yeah,
questions. It's also about, learning how each student works, right?
yeah.
Um, you teach somebody, so whenever we're in CFI, right, you teach them, how to get through this, right? But nothing speaks for experience.
Right,
Whenever you go to your CFI check ride, they're expecting you to be on an instructor level of knowledge, right?
mm,
But they're not expecting you to be a perfect instructor.
mm,
You're not going to be, right?
yeah,
You haven't taught somebody.
yeah,
And that's where experience will start to speak for itself, right?
yeah.
Me right now, as I sit, versus me 2024 November when I first started. Two totally different mindsets, two totally different people whenever it comes to flying. I've been molded by some students because they have helped me, one, overcome what I've been challenged with, right?
Right,
But they've also helped me become a better instructor, right?
right.
Once you finish your double I or once you get through your CFI ratings, right? It really hasn't started yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like you
exactly.
still have a journey in front of you and you
Hmm.
still have to be able to use that. But we want to instill the right kind of mindset, right? We want to instill the right kind of, hey, safety mindset, right? Being able to recognize when you're in a situation that maybe I need the controls, right?
Hmm.
And that's kind of what we're setting up for, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I feel like I could ask you so many questions and tips and things like that about moving through the program all the way up to CFI. I
Mhm.
think if we talk to you again, we may have to figure out what's on your horizon and what's going
Yeah.
on with you. And I'd like to see how you're progressing through. Especially, I imagine you want to either get to a jet at some point or things like that. And I kind of want to hear about what that process looks like. So you have to give us a tap on the shoulder
Yeah,
when you get some of
absolutely.
those things
Once I
moving
get
along.
once I get a little, inkling of a maybe offer or something, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Thanks, Hayden, for joining us once again here on another episode.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure to have you, and I feel like we get a lot out of the conversation. So I'm excited for our viewers and our listeners. If you guys are still listening, now is a great time to like, comment, subscribe. Of course, that helps us out, and we'd love to go through the comments and see what you guys' questions are. And if that Finish Line program sounds at all interesting to you guys, give us a call, and we can answer your questions at very least. But to everyone who's checked in on this episode of Pilots Say What, where we get to hear what pilots have to say, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week on the next episode.